Do you have any idea how many people you've killed?
No, I don't even know.
Monster Kody did an interview, and he said that he brought somebody's arm. He brought somebody's arm back to a meeting, and that was Jay Blake's arm.
You mean to tell me that story is real?
Yes, that was Jay Blake's arm. It was real. He did bring an arm back. They chopped him up and put him in front of Jefferson High School.
And a lot of homies said a lot of treacherous things about him. They were scared of him, homie. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
Few of the big homies. I mean, men ain't supposed to be scared of men, but they was afraid of him.
In one corner, Seneca Monster Kody Shakur, the 8-tray enforcer who once returned a rival's severed arm as proof of vengeance. In the other, Eugene Big U Henley, an ex-Rollin 60s shot caller now under federal indictment for extortion, charity fraud, and the 2021 execution of a rapper he once coached. Two street legends, one brutal legacy. How did a teenager who joined the Crips at 11 transform into a best-selling author and activist, while his younger counterpart faces life behind bars? Stay with us as we retrace the violence, the money, and the choices that separated fear from redemption on the streets of South Central.
They do say that part of the investigation involves the murder of another young rapper back in Las Vegas. Back in 2021, I talked to police in Vegas, and they told me over the phone that the murder was over, are you ready for this? A diss. That he had written something in a song supposedly talking bad about Big U, and that is why he ended up getting murdered.
Before he was feared across South Central, before his name struck terror even in the hearts of other Crips, Seneca Shakur was just a child trying to survive in a broken home. Born in 1963, Shakur grew up in a household riddled with abuse and neglect. His father, Ernest, was violently abusive. His mother, Birdie, emotionally distant. The family dynamic offered no safety net, only chaos. By the time his parents divorced in 1970, young Kody was already drifting into darkness. That descent accelerated in 1972 when his mother moved the family to South Central Los Angeles, an area that was quickly transforming into a breeding ground for gang violence. And just down the street lived Stanley Tookie Williams, the infamous co-founder of the Crips. Tookie took young Kody under his wing, introducing him to a new kind of family, one rooted in power, respect, and street survival. Kody would sit for hours in Tookie's home, watching older gang members lift weights, smoke PCP, and trade war stories. To a neglected child, this wasn't chaos, it was purpose. He joined the 8-tray gangsters at just 11 years old, on the very day he graduated 6th grade. That night, he was handed a sawed-off shotgun, told to empty every shell into a rival's ranks. He did, and that's where the legend began. From there, Monster Kody would rise to become one of the most notorious figures in LA gang history. As tensions simmered across South Los Angeles in the late 1970s, one of the city's most brutal gang conflicts was quietly taking shape. What began as a personal dispute between sets eventually escalated into a full-blown war that would leave dozens dead and entire communities scarred. At the center of it all was a young gang member whose reputation was already infamous, Monster Kody. Initially, the 8-tray gangsters and the Rollin 60s Crips were allies, but that fragile alliance shattered after a street fight spiraled into gunfire. The final blow came when a newly inducted 8-tray recruit took out Tyrone, brother of Big Rick, a respected 60s figure. That single act ignited a chain reaction of violence that neither side could contain. Monster Kody, already known for his fearlessness, became one of the 8-tray's most active soldiers in this war. Shootouts became routine, retaliations were expected. Every Friday, one insider recalled, we'd meet and fight. Ninos, Hoovers, the 8-trays, it became a ritual. But things quickly escalated far beyond fists and bullets. In one shocking retaliation, the Rollin 60s reportedly kidnapped the sister of an 8-tray member and subjected her to horrific abuse. The 8-trays responded with equal brutality, dismembering a 60s member named Jay Blake and leaving his remains in front of Jefferson High School. Kody himself was said to have brought the man's severed arm back to his set, a story that to this day sends chills down the spine of even hardened street veterans. What had once been a turf dispute was now a war of terror. By 1980, the war between the 8-tray gangsters and the Rollin 60s was no longer just a street feud. It had evolved into a battlefield where bodies dropped weekly and fear was the only constant. Amid the chaos, Monster Kody emerged not only as a soldier, but as a symbol of relentless aggression. Every move he made seemed to deepen his legend legend, and nothing, not bullets, not arrests, not even near death, could slow him down. That summer, Kody found himself deep in enemy territory while running errands with his mother. The location, Buddha Market, smack in the middle of Rollin 60's turf. A confrontation outside the store ended in a shootout. Kody survived. He beat the case. Then, just days later, life and death collided once again. On July 8, 1980, as his girlfriend was giving birth to their child, Kody was en route to the hospital when he spotted a known Rollin 60's member, bank robber. Kody opened fire, shooting him multiple times before vanishing into the night. By then, the war's toll was staggering. The 8 Trays had lost 5, the 60's had lost 8, but the violence reached an even darker depth when Kody was allegedly involved in the dismemberment of Jay Blake. That brutal act wasn't the end. Later that year, Kody was set up by 3 women and ambushed by 60's members. He was shot multiple times but lived. Just 2 days after being released from the hospital, police picked him up for 6 different shootings. Again, he beat the charges. Kody was bloodied, bruised, and back in jail, but his reputation was now untouchable. After years of warfare on the streets of South Central, Monster Kody found himself behind bars once again, this time not just as an inmate, but as a man on the edge of transformation. It was within the cold, solitary walls of Pelican Bay State Prison, one of California's most infamous supermax facilities, that Kody began to shift his identity from gang enforcer to intellectual insurgent. Though he had dropped out of high school, prison became his classroom. He devoured books on Black liberation, radical politics, and the teachings of figures like Malcolm X and George Jackson. Through his involvement with the Republic of New Africa, a Black nationalist organization, Kody began to unpack the very system that had shaped him. This newfound consciousness didn't just stay in his head, it poured onto paper. In 1993, while in solitary confinement, Kody began writing his life story. The result was Monster, the autobiography of an LA gang member, a raw, unflinching account of gang life that shocked the nation and humanized a world many only saw through headlines and stereotypes. The book pulled back the curtain on the emotional, social, and political roots of gang violence. It wasn't just about drive-bys and colors. It was about survival, abandonment, identity, and trauma. The memoir became a critical success, taught in classrooms and studied by criminologists, community activists, and at-risk youth alike. Through words, Monster Kody began reshaping the same narrative he once lived out violently in the streets, reclaiming power not with a weapon, but with a pen. While Monster Kody was transforming his life behind prison walls, Eugene Big U Henley was carving out a very different path, one that straddled the line between redemption and deception. After serving time himself, Big U re-emerged in the mid-2000s with a polished new image, a reformed gang leader turned community advocate. He founded a nonprofit called Developing Options, aimed at keeping inner-city youth away from gangs through sports, mentorship, and education. On the surface, it was a redemption arc tailor-made for headlines. The city of Los Angeles bought into it, literally. Through the GRYD, Gang Reduction and Youth Development Program, Big U's organization received over $500,000 a year in taxpayer funding. Celebrities, including NBA stars like Draymond Green and Shaquille O'Neal, also donated tens of thousands of dollars, believing they were supporting a positive cause. But according to federal investigators, it was all a facade. Behind the scenes, Big U was allegedly operating like a modern-day crime boss, embezzling donations, shaking down dispensaries, and using his charity as a front for laundering dirty money. In one instance, when a dispensary owner fell behind on payments, armed men stormed his store, stole cash and product, and later that same day, Big U allegedly summoned him to a house where all the stolen goods were laid out. "That's how you rob yourself," he told the man, before demanding an additional $10,000 to avoid another hit. Big U had positioned himself as a role model, but behind closed doors, investigators say he was running a criminal enterprise wearing a mask of legitimacy to shield his illicit power plays. In 2021, the mask of legitimacy began to crack. Eugene Big U Henley, once praised as a community savior, was now under federal scrutiny following a murder that shocked even the most hardened insiders: the execution-style killing of 21-year-old rapper Rayon Williams, better known in the streets as Ray Sean. What makes this case so disturbing isn't just the violence, it's the betrayal at its core. Ray Sean wasn't a stranger to Big U. He was like family. Years earlier, Big U had coached him in youth football, mentoring the boy in his early years. So when Ray Sean signed to Big U's record label, Unique Music, it seemed like a full-circle moment. But things took a dark turn when Ray Sean released a diss track aimed squarely at Big U, mocking his street credibility, and even predicting his own fate with haunting lines like, "This song can get me killed for thinking it's funny." 5 days later, he was dead. According to court documents, Unique Music flew Ray Sean out to Las Vegas to record. When he missed a studio session, Big U and his associate, Sylvester Robinson, allegedly drove out to confront him. Surveillance footage shows Big U returning to the Airbnb late that night, drenched in sweat or water. Hours later, Rayon's body was found in a desert ditch, shot in the face with a revolver. Federal prosecutors say the killing was deliberate. Not only did Big U allegedly carry out the murder, he also tried to cover his tracks, removing surveillance footage and equipment from the studio video and having someone else drive his vehicle to throw off law enforcement. It wasn't just a crime, it was a statement, one that may have finally pushed Big U from legend to federal target. As investigators dug deeper into the life of Eugene Big U Henley, what they uncovered was a sprawling web of extortion, fraud, and intimidation that stretched far beyond a single murder. Court documents reveal that the federal government had been quietly tracking Big U for years through surveillance, wiretaps, and even undercover operations. And what they captured painted a damning portrait of a man who never truly left the streets. One wiretap recorded Big U plotting a robbery in real time. It began with a celebrity rapper who had been robbed of expensive studio equipment. That gear happened to contain an Apple AirTag, allowing its movements to be traced. Instead of reporting the theft, Big U allegedly mobilized his crew, loaded up firearms, and prepared to take matters into his own hands, only to call it off at the last moment after spotting police nearby. But that wasn't the only evidence. In another recorded conversation, Big U made his position clear. If I ever had a problem with any man, color, creed, king, or kind, he wouldn't be here, or I wouldn't be. The feds say that was more than bravado. It was a threat wrapped in confession. Informants even handed Big U money directly, cash that came straight from federal agents posing as allies. Hidden cameras recorded every transaction, providing what prosecutors call indisputable proof that Henley was still actively engaged in criminal enterprise while promoting himself as a reformed mentor. Even worse, those allegedly deceived included high-profile donors and city officials who believed their contributions were saving lives, not financing illegal operations. The case against Big U, the once praised community figure, now rests on a mountain of evidence built from the shadows. At first glance, Developing Options looked like a beacon of hope. Founded by Eugene Big U Henley, the nonprofit promised to uplift at-risk youth through sports, mentorship, and community programs. It was backed by the city of Los Angeles, received over $500,000 annually through gang prevention grants, and boasted celebrity endorsements from NBA stars like Draymond Green and Shaquille O'Neal. But according to a sweeping federal indictment, it was all smoke and mirrors, a carefully crafted front to move dirty money and expand criminal influence under the guise of charity. Prosecutors allege that instead of funding after-school programs or neighborhood outreach, Big U funneled large portions of the money into personal accounts. Celebrity donations, government grants, and business contributions meant to change lives were, in reality, fueling a secret empire. The schemes didn't stop there. Investigators say Big U used intimidation and extortion to control local cannabis dispensaries, demanding $25,000 monthly protection fees. When one shop owner couldn't pay, armed men reportedly stormed the store and took everything: cash, cannabis, and dignity. Later that same day, Big U allegedly summoned the owner, laid out the stolen goods, and said, "That's how you rob yourself," then demanded $10,000 more to prevent it from happening again. Authorities now say Developing Options was never just a nonprofit. It was a blueprint, a strategy to shield crime behind community good, all while building street power disguised as civic leadership. Monster Kody and Big U both emerged from the same war-torn streets of South Central Los Angeles, but their paths, while violently parallel in the beginning, couldn't have ended more differently. Kody, once the embodiment of gang terror, chose self-reflection and activism behind prison walls. He used his final years to educate, write, and warn future generations about the deadly trap of the life he once glorified. Big U, on the other hand, appeared to choose redemption, but federal investigators say it was all a performance. Beneath the polished image of a community leader was a man still running extortion rings, laundering money, and allegedly silencing those who stood in his way, including a young rapper who once called him coach. What separates a man who breaks the cycle from one who keeps spinning it? Monster Kody found meaning and transformation. Big U, the feds argue, simply found a new hustle. As federal charges loom and public trust unravels, one thing becomes clear: a good story can inspire, but a true legacy is written in action. Not illusion. That's all for today. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more street-level reporting, and drop a comment below. Whose path shocked you the most? Let's talk about it.